Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled. Hey guys! This week on the show, we sat down and chatted with Will Connor. Will is an incredible musician and a successful entrepreneur, and his story of balance and floating along through success has always inspired Jay and I. Will walks us through growing up in Byron Bay, Australia, coming to the US, living his adult life in both countries with his family, and how he is still fitting music in now that he has 2 young children and a thriving business. He owns and runs a large hat brand called Connor Hats out of St. Augustine and plays his music alongside music legends like Jack Johnson and Dave Rastovich as a side gig. I hope you love his interview as much as I do. Let's jump in. Hi, Will. How are you doing?
Hello, Jay and Chelsea.
Hello, Will Connor.
So we have a lot of questions, actually, we put together for you, Will, and I feel like some of them we've probably taunted you with before, but I actually just want to start with the thing that fascinates me the most about your whole story. And first of all, we met you officially in Byron Bay, right? So that was the first time, I think.
That's right.
And so we were there for the Blues Fest with Donovan, but I seem to remember, I mean, this is your stomping ground. So we want to hear a little bit about, that's where you grew up, right?
In 2010, we met you backstage, and then I think later on we found out that literally was your home, right? Like, didn't that location used to be pretty much where you grew up?
Well, maybe not that exact location, but like, maybe a few hundred meters away. Maybe
I'm not saying that backstage room
you
was
didn't grow
your
up
bedroom.
in a backstage festival.
Well, I wanted to, before you asked me that, I wanted to say it's an honor to be asked to answer questions with you two. So thank you very much.
Well, it's an honor that you said yes. You're one of our favorite people to chat with.
I want to be you when I grow up, so I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I'll grow up sometime soon, please.
Yeah, no, we don't plan on it. But yeah, so tell us, you have like one of the most fascinating childhoods of most people I talk to, I think, of anyone I know. So tell us a little bit about Byron Bay.
Well, back when I was a little kid there, if anyone's been there, which is probably quite a few listeners, hopefully, that have been there in recent times, it's definitely nowadays it's a place of lots of German backpacking tourists and all kinds of people from all over the world coming there to enjoy, the beautiful beaches and all of the things that you would, young wild lives that they have. And it's really a different place now. So it's a lot more built up, and I don't want this to sound like I'm making it sound like a terrible place now, because it's actually still amazingly beautiful, and we're constantly battling to keep it that way. I'm trying to keep it small and keep the council in check and make sure they don't overbuild the place and all that kind of stuff. But back to the question, when I was a kid, it was a really sleepy one-horse town. It was sort of a working class town. There was a way back before I was alive, there was a whaling station there, and now people come to see the whales. So that's a drastic difference.
What is that? A whaling station?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
They used to go out and kill whales, basically.
Oh.
In the town that is now the hippie capital of Australia, that is saving whales left, right, and center, and going there to watch them. And so tourists come to watch the whales now. So way back, they used to go out and drag them in. And so that's how you could just tell from that little sentence there how much of a change has happened, in some good and some bad, and that's a good change, obviously. So, and then after that whaling time, there was like a meatworks there, which is terrible. So I'm going to tell you, for vegans, I'm going to tell you the worst thing that you could have. Luckily, you didn't have to sleep in my room next to me in my little place there, because I lived in a place about a kilometer away from a meatworks, and that night I could hear the screams of the cat.
No. Yeah, like worst nightmare for us vegans here. Yeah.
So,
well, for anyone. I don't think meat eaters want to hear that either. They're not enjoying this scream.
It's probably a good thing for people to hear, because they realize where their food's coming from, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, so I'm just telling you the dirty laundry of Byron Bay. It wasn't a it wasn't a happy, rainbow loving unicorn place that it is today, and has been probably the last 30 years. Prior to that was, pretty radical. So yeah, that's the dark underbelly. But the good side was, being a little kid, and there was this crew of expat Americans and foreigners and some Australians that have been warped by them, which is, my family and friends that I was hanging out with there, and we got to experience a life of, being in rainforest and walking out into beautiful clear ocean and camping on the beach and having fires and the stars, the most amazing stars you've ever seen in your life, just so brilliant. And they're all still there today, but back then you could run a little freer and a little wilder, and be, close to nature and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, it was an amazing thing. And then I lived in this place called the Arts Factory for a long time. We built a house right next to it, and that was the beginning of the Blues and Roots Festival. So that's the first place that it started, and I got to grow up there. So yeah, I'd be listening on a quiet night. I'd listen to the poor cows, and then on a weekend, I could listen in my room as I'm going to bed to Midnight Oil and all the best Australian bands, and all of the bands that the owners would bring from the US. So all these old blues guys, Buddy Guy, and just to Violent Femmes, to all kinds of
Wow.
music, and I'd either sneak in or I just hang out in my room and listen to it. And I had all the posters in my room, and so I got this sort of musical upbringing just by listening. In my room.
So, well, referring to that, so correct me if I'm wrong, but your mom was from America, correct?
And my dad.
Oh, your dad was too. I thought your dad was from Australia. So they both moved there. Okay.
So my mom and dad were in St. Augustine, and my dad knocked up the general's daughter, my mom, and I was 11 months old. But he was the coolest guy ever, and he was actually happy we probably split. But yeah, so they went over there and just lived a unique life. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I got to grow up in such a beautiful place. And
yeah, so I remember conversations of this essentially being like a hippie commune over there. It was kind of the vibe of like naked babies and lots of music and fireside
pretty much like that's. I grew up in a way that you'd have to be a multi-millionaire to do now to actually try to recreate, and that's so ironic and weird that literally people are now having to become multi-millionaires to recreate that scene. And not to say that it's fake. Some people they'll buy themselves 200 acres and just be that way, and you have to buy that. And when I was a kid, we just did it, and it was amazing. It was safe and free, and we could run off, and we knew which snakes to stay away from, and that was it. Just had fun out in the bush, and it was amazing.
Well, so
I want to know about the music thing. So you said about 30 years ago is when things started to change, and then before that was kind of like the roots of the Blues Fest beginnings. Did the music come there because of people like your parents brought music there, or was music in the area and that's why they went there in the first place? Like, how did that come about?
Well, now what happened was, to be specific, there was a guy named Danny Dopel who his mother was a real estate tycoon in Manhattan Beach, and she sent my stepdad, Danny, and a few of their friends to Australia on a boat to avoid the Vietnam War, which is crazy. So they had this world trip to go, and so that was my stepdad. So he took off on a boat in a band, and they got to Australia eventually, and they were like the first. They were on like the MTV equivalent back then, as touted as the first like wild hippie rock and roll band from America to get, to be in Australia, and to way back. So
your stepdad Jim, so how did he score this like ticket to Byron Bay when most people were like running up to freezing Canada to escape the war?
Right. Well, here's this lady, Essie. She was, God rest her soul, she's amazing. A larger than life, large, best laugh ever lady, big happy lady, and she just wanted to send her sweet, wild and crazy, alcohol and drug fiended kids off. Even though my stepdad wasn't that way, he's the one who survived. But they all just went off and partied around the world on this boat and ended up in Australia. And so they were good musicians. My stepdad's a great musician, as you know, and they
Yeah.
were rock and rolling, having a good time, and she ended up buying Dan this place. It was an old piggery, so it was an old place where they used to kill pigs, and turned it into this amazing hippie music, free love kind of area, zone that's known in Byron Bay now. It's a massive backpackers now and a brewery and everything, and they've kind of ripped the soul out of it, to be honest. But back then, it was just this place where they would bring music from all around the world. So, in Australia, there's like Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, and Brisbane, a couple of other big cities, not many, 4 or 5 big cities, and they would tour these huge acts from America. But then Dan would get in on the act, Dan Doppel from the Arts Factory, and he would actually spend his fortune to bring like a huge star to go play in Byron Bay with 200 people. You know what I mean, to show up. So in the infancy of it all, he would just spend the money and get these unbelievable people there. And if you go back in the archives of the Arts Factory and the Blues Fest to see who he brought over there. So it was just radical that he kind of created like the buzz for Byron Bay, because these bands would come there. They'd see how beautiful it was. They'd play. They'd get paid a bunch of money to only play to 200 people, though, because there's no one there. And eventually that built up, and eventually, unfortunately, Dan kind of lost everything. He lost, all the money and everything, because he was just spending more than he was making. But at the other side of it, he gave a gift to a lot of other people to carry the music torch forward. And now, now it's the big Blues Fest, and there's the Splendor in the Grass and all these amazing festivals in the area, which, for good or bad, some people don't like all of the publicity, but we get to see a lot of amazing music, and it's a lot of creative people have been kind of, spun off of that and have stayed in the area. So, you could be there and it's super fascinating. You could be sitting down at a cafe and you have no idea who the garbage man is or who the billionaire is or who the rock star is, because they all look the same. That's one kind of neat thing about Australia. It's there's not real classes there. Everyone just kind of looks the same and does their thing. There's a few show-offs, but people try to be low-key there, which is kind of interesting.
So, like, in a way, like your stepdad Jim pretty much had his life saved literally by music. So if he wasn't a musician, he very well might have been stuck going to war or stuck in Toronto, perhaps.
Exactly. Our good friends in Toronto. But yeah, no, luckily we got to go to Byron Bay, and then my dad and my mum ended up there just because my dad he literally wanted to, I don't know if it was like he loved America, but he didn't want to, he could just see the writing on the wall with the way everything was going here, and he wanted to go live a freer life. And it's hard for people who have grown up in America and a real patriotic and love a place to, you think that's kind of a traitorous thing to do, but it's just more of a world view he had, and he took off and ended up in a paradise. And then my mum and dad are best friends, even though they're not together anymore. But I'm really lucky to have 4 parents, and they're all best friends, and we all holiday together and hang out. So, so that's a plus.
So laying that all out, like the broad view of, you have been doing this half in Australia, half in the US thing since you were a kid, right? Did they go back and forth a lot, or did you start that when you were older?
No, I started that when I was older. They just kind of, honestly, if I was them, I wouldn't have gone back over here too much, because of it's such a it's a pretty amazing place over there, and they had a life there that there wasn't a whole lot here for them except for their parents. So it wasn't like they had a business over here or anything to pull them over. So in their particular situation, I could see why they only kind of brought me over like once every 4 or 5, 6 years, and I remember coming a few times, and one time we actually came and spent a few months, and I went to junior high. Yeah, is that like, I don't know.
That's a thing.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And wow, what a culture shock that was coming over here.
I bet.
I went from...
We should specify that here is St. Augustine currently.
Yes.
In America, and it was such a trip. I mean, everyone's going to think this is probably boring, but I went from like running around in a field and like serious about studying. Like they're real strict in Australia about going to school and making sure you do well. And it was a competition. Like I'd be in Australia, I'd be surfing perfect waves in the morning. And I just remember this even back then, and going, look at us. We're all getting out of this pumping surf and leaving it to go to school. What is the matter with us? We're teenagers. And we would go to school because we wanted to beat our friends. It was like a competition. We wanted to be smarter than them and do that. And I don't know, we were weird. That's a weird. I hope my teenagers turn out like that. So, or when they get to be teenagers. So anyway, so I came to Florida, and it was really funny because we weren't allowed to run. I know I'm painting a bad picture here. I do love America, and I love all its quirkiness, and I'll get to that in a second.
No, I think it's a really valuable perspective, actually. I think it's really cool to hear the how very different our, I don't know, training is.
Like our priorities are just so warped in a way. And I think that's, just the story you're telling now that you're saying is boring is one of the major reasons we really wanted to talk to you, because, us as parents of young children now, it's such an important topic to discuss what kind of paradigm you're establishing for your children for the rest of their lives. And like you're talking about growing up with nature and music and surfing and all these beautiful things as a significant prioritized aspect of your life, and coming to America where it's obviously a lot different. I think it's just so cool to hear that. I couldn't even imagine you coming here. Did you feel like the outcast, or did you feel like the one that understood everything and everyone else was just screwed up?
No, I didn't think anyone was screwed up at all. I felt like a total outcast, and it was pretty funny. That's another story which I guess I'll get to, but yeah, that was, but when I was younger, when I first came here, I guess I see what you're saying. Yeah. But when I first came here to go to school when I was younger, I did come back again to go to school when I was older, and that was a whole nother perspective. So you have to remember we're talking about times in our lives when we're young and we have these, things. We only remember what we remember. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
sorry, brain just shot off in a different direction. But no, when I came over when I was really young and went to junior high, it was like, all of a sudden there were these girls, and they were like, oh, you've got an interesting accent and stuff like that. And I'd never really been interested in girls like that. And they were like asking me, sending me love notes and stuff. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? This is kind of different. I'm just used to going surfing, and this is like,
You're like, I might be onto something here.
American girls, they're pretty sweet, so, but as far as like the physical side of it, like for example, like we'd go out and do this like concrete like square, and we'd eat in a cafeteria with like the crazy noise and the plastic trays and the slop food, and I was like, this is radical. Like I don't know if I'm not that keen on this, because I was used to just taking my lunch from home and walking down next to the river, next to the river or the little creek at school, and eating out under a tree, and I could run around on the grass. And here, if I ran, they'd stop and they'd embarrass you and make you do jumping jacks in front of the whole school if you ran. That was like a punishment for running. And I'm thinking, I'm a kid. Why am I getting punished for running? So it was just kind of a weird thing. So on the other side was the people were so nice and friendly, and that was amazing. So I want to, there's a few things I love about America. Number one, the people are just so friendly, so interested, and in Australia, they're more like, especially back then, they're more like they're like more closed off a little bit. And I think Australia has a bit to learn from America, from the openness of people in general. And hopefully that's changing over there. But so and then later when I came to college here, that was a whole nother experience. And literally no one had ever really heard of much of anything about Australia except for like Crocodile Dundee from that time, like 1989 or 90 or something. And so I was like, holy cow. So I'd put my hand up meekly to answer a question, then I'd talk, and everyone in the class would stare at me, and I would just get so embarrassed. And I'm like, all right, I got to kick this, because I can't learn if I'm just getting embarrassed every time I talk. So it was just funny, like to build my confidence back up, and then realize that everyone was so friendly and so interested in ideas. And funny enough, it happened to be a teacher who was the one who made fun of me, which led to me just going, you know what, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to drop out of college and go run it and do a business. And I thank that teacher for being such a jerk, for making fun of the idea. So
well, so you're I was going to talk about surfing, but I'm actually going to circle back to that because you just opened. So the business had, so, okay, so Will owns, it's two separate hat companies now, right? So it's BC Hats and
And
then
Connor
Connor
hats,
Hats,
right?
right?
Well, actually, my dad is BC Hats, so I import his product for him, his hats in the US, and I distribute for him here. But I sort of bring his brand under the connorhats.com umbrella.
So was it, so he had that running in Australia forever. So the BC Hats has been going for a really long time. How
Yeah,
many years has it been now?
been like 40, almost 50 years. So he showed up in Australia and started making, he was a leather worker here in St. Augustine. And then he took his craft down to Australia, and they actually paid half of our way to go down there. So he had really long hair, and he put on a short haired wig to go to the interview.
No way.
To stuff all his hair up in the interview for the interview. And there was me, little cute little baby, and my mum, and he
Oh,
was
you
20.
need to find a picture of that. That's amazing.
I did a picture. 20. He was 21. Mum was 18 or 18, and I was or 19, and I was 11 months old when we all flew down to Australia. But the government approved us because he had the skill, paid half our way. So we went down there, and he kept doing his leather work, opened a shop, and on one of the iconic point breaks called Burley Heads at the Gold Coast. And eventually we ended up a few years later down in Byron Bay. But yeah, so it was funny that he had to kind of act like a short-haired guy to be the straight character to get, so they wouldn't think he was a long-haired freak, which he was.
Heading to a hippie commune in Australia, which is exactly what he did.
What's that song? How long-haired hippie people need not apply.
Yes.
Exactly. And or cut your hair and get a real job from the other guy. But
Yeah.
anyway, so he went down there, but then he turned himself into like a really successful business, and he went from just, and you can check it out on the website there, my dad's video here of him, kind of, you get the feel of what he does. But he's a surfer at heart, and he created something with his hands, and he turned it from a small, just one at a time thing to a small factory, and then not a huge factory, just a nice factory. And he's done really well over the years, and he's taught me a lot from.
So had
from
that always been like in the back of your mind as far as like, okay, well, I'm going to go to school, but then this hat business is something I want to do? Or you just were still surfing and had no idea what you wanted to do? Or what was the thought process going to college?
Yeah, well, I actually always knew what I wanted to do, and it wasn't necessarily hats. I just wanted to do something with, I don't know, I feel like business is a very creative endeavor, and I felt like I just knew I wanted to do that. So I didn't want a profession like a doctor or a lawyer. So the college thing was just, I thought, well, I'm probably going to, hopefully I'll learn something. And then I just kind of, like my dad says in his little video interview there, it's just like kind of dumb luck and hard work. You just kind of stumble upon, something and go for it and don't give up, so. But yeah, so I kind of always knew I wanted to do something, and I thought, well, why not? I'm going to ask my dad if I could buy some hats off him. He didn't have a distributor over here, he had a few shops and things. So I just took his hats, bought them off him, and then resold them, and kind of learned from scratch how to run a business and how to, I created a little computer program with a friend who was a computer whiz, and it was kind of QuickBooks before QuickBooks, and there's all these little side things that you have to learn to figure out how to do it. And there's, I don't know, this, you have to use your left brain and your right brain if you want to be a business owner, as you know. So, and I feel like if you have a day and you use your left and your right equally throughout the day, then that's a full day. And then it'll add your body in there too. So go, do whatever you love to do with your body, go on surfing or running or whatever it is. So I feel like you use all those three things and you've had a full good day and you can sleep, So that's kind of what my little philosophy.
Well, I love it. Well, talk to us about, so I know something really important to you, which you've dabbled on in this conversation, is the eco side of all of this. And I know when we left St. Augustine, you were sort of trying to develop a couple more things within your business that were a little bit about the, saving the planet cause. How have you, what's working in your business world and otherwise right now? I know that you did what is it called? The Transparent Sea Voyage, right? That was a big thing for you. So just talk to me about that side of your brain, because I think that's a really cool endeavor you've always kind of pulled us into.
Yeah, well, I guess your life experiences, when you're a small business owner, your life experiences sort of have to spill over into what you actually do every day. So the transparency tour, yes, being something that I traveled, 500 miles along the coast in a little kayak and camped on the beach every night with our friends, and we saw all the plastic debris that was washing up, and I had no idea about that. It was 10 years ago, and I was like, what's this? And so when we'd have to document everything, every little tiny piece that we collected, and it was we're on these most magical beaches in the world, and you look a little closer and there's plastic all over them. So that was a big wake up call for me. So I went back and sort of redesigned my whole business from the inside out, and work backwards, and no single use plastics. We test anything, there's any chemicals, they're gone, we replace them with something else. There's we if you make a product, you're damaging something, but the goal is to to just be as soft as you can with that, and try to avoid anything that's deep down is wrong. So we're kind of coming from a deep place there to try to fix what you've done, and wrong, right your wrongs, and do the right thing. So yeah, it took a long time, and it's a never ending process, to be honest. We every day we're trying to chip at the edges there to be cleaner and smarter. So long story short, that it's taken a long time, and it's now actually has moved even further to the actual property that we have here, the warehouse. So we're on a couple of acres, and so 1 acre is solid concrete. And I know Jay and Chelsea, you guys haven't been there in a while, but we've expanded that, and it's the whole half of it, whole 1 acre there is full warehouse with concrete, which is no fun. Like, it's you've had to mow down the trees, and you've had to put up a bunch of stuff just to store stuff. It's a bit silly. So the other acre that I have next to it, we're going through the beginning stages of launching a permaculture project there. So the whole idea behind, if you don't know anything about permaculture, basically it's growing perennial food plants, nuts and fruit and vegetables and things that you don't have to sort of do like an annual. An annual is something that you grow, like a carrot, that you have to dig it up and replant it every year. So most of what we're doing there is going to be a permaculture thing. So basically a food forest that could probably feed around 50 families when it's all done.
Whoa.
So at the same time, we're going to turn it into hopefully the goal is to turn it into a place that people could learn from. And so if you're someone who has a monoculture, which is like just a giant piece of grass in your backyard, and you fertilize it and you spray it with chemicals, and your kids run on it and all that stuff, maybe I could inspire one person to change some of it or all of it and turn it into a food production, and it's actually not as hard as you think. And I could teach those people how to do that. And so this will be a place where people can go, a really nice place to hang out, and we're building a fun little cabin there to hang out, and just a nice place to be, to show that you can take an industrial piece of dirt and sand and turn it into a paradise. And within 3 years, it should be a little paradise there. So I'm looking forward to you to come and check it out.
Yeah, I can't wait. That's awesome.
I think that's great that you were talking about how, like, you're doing this big effort, but maybe you'll inspire one person. I think so much of knowing you and knowing the creative people that we know, like, that seems to it comes down to that for a lot of our pursuits, like art and music, traveling, the eco consciousness. So much of it comes down to like one person at a time, one change at a time. Is music something that also kind of falls into that category for you? Like, I know you're really humble about your music, which is awesome, but I don't want to underestimate how like talented you are. And whenever we bring up the topic of music, you almost like blush and don't want to talk about it sometimes.
But then, like, on the other note, he's, the opener for Jack Johnson in
Yeah,
a
no
sold
big
out
deal,
stage
like-
2 nights in a row in St. Augustine. So
But for
we
you,
like to brag about you more than you brag about yourself, Will.
yeah, I mean, you're a talented dude, and we're proud of what you're doing, and it shows in your lyrics how important these topics are for you. Like, these are things that you've been living, and it seems like a lot of the life of Will Connor really is about influencing and inspiring one person at a time. Can you maybe talk about your music and lyric writing process or inspiration at all?
Yeah, well, it's funny. The everything that you just said is goes back to what I was talking about with the difference between Australia and America. So America, you'll have friends like Jay and Chelsea who are super gracious with their words and make you feel like you know you've done something, and they're really appreciative about it. Whereas in Australia, the general thing is to be like really humble about something. Otherwise, it's kind of called the tall poppy syndrome. Otherwise, if you kind of talk about yourself too much, you get kind of chopped down. And that's one of the things I love about America, because you have people all around you that are willing to give you encouragement, and I think that's a beautiful place to be in, especially for kids as well. But I'll go back to your question. The music, yeah, like everything, it's changed over the years. So in the beginning, I was just so excited to write a song, and then so excited to play it for one person, and then 100 people, and then luckily, 30,000 people at one time. Was insane. Like that's a dream come true, or somebody's worst nightmare if you're super shy.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if that's my dream come true.
Well, you threw out those like plastic mustaches on stage at Blues Fest.
I did, yes. I was a really big deal for about 15 seconds, Will.
Well, everyone has their 15 seconds. And you got to enjoy it, and that's the thing. Like some people get to the 30,000 thing, and then and Jack Johnson, as you mentioned before, he's told me some things that are pretty special in the sense that, like, he tells me, hey, Will, this music thing's just a fleeting moment. Like, people might not like me, and so I'm just kind of doing what I can while I can, and in the future, they might not think he's as amazing as he is. So that with that kind of a philosophy, you give yourself a big buffer for for that rush. So people get that big high when they go out and they play to 30,000 people or 10,000 or whatever it is, and they go, wow, these people love me and all that stuff. And then they get off stage, and then all of a sudden they're not the flavor of the month anymore. Then they get really depressed, and physically and mentally it turns them into probably pretty cranky people. But the beauty of people who just appreciate the moment and can really live in the moment, and which is pretty hard to do, but it's good to at least keep trying to remind yourself that it's you just got to be happy with 30,000 people or one person. So as time's gone on, and I've gotten lucky and did an amazing couple tours in Japan and had videos and all that stuff, and hung out with people that I think are amazing, and all that kind of stuff. That's great. But nowadays, I'm actually literally getting the most joy, and it sounds really kind of maybe possibly lame to anyone who doesn't have kids, but if I can get my kids to dig one of my songs, then I'm like, yes, this is epic. You know what I mean? And I'm going to ride that wave as
totally relate to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we just all, we were lucky enough to have time to go to your house. Actually, in our opening episode for this entire podcast, we talk about how we did, the drive down to Florida, and we realized we had all these amazing people in our life. And in that moment, when we had the two girls playing piano together, I think all of us sort of felt like we'd made it.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Oh, it's amazing. Those are memories that you never forget, So yeah, so I guess the answer is it always changes. So maybe I'll get lucky and I'll get to, play to all these energetic people in the future again at some point, and that's awesome. But I'm just gonna, you're just gonna kind of roll with the punches and enjoy it. Now, on the other hand, someone might be thinking, well, that's just some guy who used to be a rock star and now he sucks,
Yeah.
So you got to just take it, whichever way you want to take it.
Well, I actually think that's the cool thing with your career, is that you've let it just come in waves, and then decided to go back to doing work or family or getting married or traveling, and then gone back to it. And I think that's, part of the creative process. That's that left and right brain balance again, right? So.
Yeah, I think you were talking about how not letting it go to your I'm losing my
ego?
thoughts. There
Head?
you go.
Yeah.
Letting it go to your head.
That's what I'm
I
here
think
for.
the whole aspect of ego attachment is something that I think all of us are you and Jenny and Chelsea and I try to be conscious of. But, talking about that humbleness that you have with your music, I totally understand where you're coming from. You don't like name dropping, even though you have a lot of names to drop. But if sometimes getting people's attention necessitates mentioning someone's name in order to get the lyrics across, in order to change someone's mind, then I think as long as your intentions are pure, then I think it's okay to use that platform. And you're, like I said earlier, I know you're not going to brag about it, but your lyrics are powerful. You talk about minimalistic lifestyles, which you and Jenny and your children certainly try to live, and talking about like love and beauty and appreciation. And I remember one of the first songs I heard of yours, I think it was called Stuff, right?
Yeah.
I remember listening to that, and it just kind of hit me. It was really powerful, talking about how you don't need all this stuff. And the more we've gotten to know you, the more you realize how authentic that message is from you. And hearing your story from childhood, it's interesting because it shows where it came from.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the only way to write music is, just write what you know about, and write your story and your day experience and whatever. And then for me, when I have written a song, I feel like, wow, that feels good. And if I get goosebumps about how I feel about it, then hopefully that would translate to somebody, in the future, in a different world. It's funny how music travels around the world, and someone in Japan or in Australia or America, anywhere, Europe, all of a sudden, and then they take that sound that they heard and those lyrics that they heard, and they use it in their context. And it's funny how, to bring it to painting, it's like they've painted themselves this little picture through music, in a whole nother place where, and I started this little song writing in the backyard, looking out at whatever. And now it's, who knows where it is. And that's pretty fun to I'm sure you kind of get that thrill as well when you think about that every now and then, all your artwork in places all around the world, and it kind of makes you feel like you're doing something positive in the world, because hopefully someone's going to get a smile or a good feeling from what they see or hear, from just something that came out of your head.
Yeah, for me, that like I kind of compartmentalize the business part from the creative process, so I can keep the creative process pure. And this goes into one of the questions I was going to ask you is, well, let me first preface it by saying this. So for me, when I'm painting or creating in the studio, that's one part of my soul, my personality, my portal into creativity. And then once it's done, then the business side kicks in, and I'm like, okay, how can I market this? And you talked about the left-right, brain balance and whatnot. I see that in the business, and I see that within other aspects of you. But then when it comes to the music, it seems like the left brain doesn't like playing too well with the right side with the music. You're so humble and subtle.
Jay, and you're always on me about that, and I do appreciate it. I really
just
do.
Because I love you, man.
Well, I do. I know it's funny. You pick that out, and I do acknowledge that. I'm not going to play too dumb here. I totally get it. The reason, probably the honest reason why I don't engage the left brain on that, which funny enough actually controls the right side of your body, but that's another story. But it's the reason why I don't engage that as much as I possibly could is that I don't want to spoil it, and I feel like if I turn it into business, that feeling I get from it will go away, because I don't. Honestly, I don't need it. I don't need the business of that. I don't need it in my soul, or I don't need it in my, I can make a buck, doing anything. I don't want to. I feel like I will taint it if I turn that into something that I
get that
money from. But at the same time, I don't fault other creative people from doing that, because that's how they get their music out, and that's how they get their art out, and that's what they have to do. But I don't want to have to do that. And I've just been really lucky that I've had good friends who have just taken me along for their rides just for moments, and I can see the world they live in, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the world that I want to have to, I don't know how to finish that sentence.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's like, I'm just trying to ask these questions just for other artists and musicians out there that are trying to like sort these topics through, because, people will often artists and musicians talk about that. Like how do I make a living from it?
I want to give them some advice.
Please.
I want to say, listen, don't do what I've done. Go out and make the money if you can, and do it. And my advice is never give up, whatever it is you want to do, because I could do it. I could go out and make a living doing it. I'm sure I could, and it would be amazing. But I've just, it's, I guess you call it opportunity cost. So,
Hmm.
The opportunities that I've steered away from to do something else is, possibly costing me that. But if luckily in this world, luckily I have a choice, and I've chosen to, at this point in my life, just to not do that. But I say I want everyone to do it because I want to hear their music,
Right on.
about it, and I want to listen to it and enjoy it. So, and that's just the way I am, and that's, I don't know. It's not a cop out. Totally not a cop out. I promise. I'm telling you
No,
that.
I actually think you're the anomaly, Will, that it's pretty cool because you get to like dabble and do this amazing thing, but you haven't. There's an amazing quote by Elizabeth Gilbert where she says, I'm going to totally botch this quote, but she says, "For the love of God, don't put the pressure of having to be a financial gain on your art," because it's like once you give that to your art, it's a totally different ball game. And Jay and I go in and out with that too. It's really hard when you now have to make music
Yeah,
or
I struggle
have
with
to
it.
create art.
I kind of asked you also out of curiosity, because I find like an internal struggle with myself, because part of me is like very, I'll be honest, part of me is almost jealous. Like I wish I had the other giant business thing happening so I don't have to worry about art with the business. But then the other side of me feels like the more I promote the business side of it, the more platform and the more reach I'll have with the artwork itself. So it's
Yeah.
like it's a struggle.
I like what you guys are doing, and I don't, I just, you just go along and do, like, just dumb luck kind of stuff anyway, but, and really at the end of the day, all you can do is reflect upon what you've done. I don't actually live my life with like a serious purpose about things, and some people, I'm envious of that, where they have this drive and this purpose to do. I just kind of, I float, and somehow it looks like purpose every now and then, and which is crazy, but I don't, I don't know. It's a weird feeling. I just kind of do what I do, and I don't know how
I'd like to throw a quick analogy in there, because it seems like, knowing you as we do, that I can say that it seems like surfing has really impacted you in your other aspects of life. Like with surfing, you have to learn to be patient. You have to learn to wait for the swells and the wind and everything to line up. And then when it does, you hit hard. And like that's kind of like you in a nutshell. Like you wait for the swell, quote unquote, to come into play with traveling, and you wait for the timing, and then you travel, and when you do it big. And then with business, you prepare, you wait, and when the time is right, when everything lines up, you go for it. And it seems like, music is just another one of those. And I know, being a parent, I've experienced that with my creativity, where right now I'm majorly prioritizing family before creativity. So in some aspect, creativity takes a back seat, rightfully so. And it's just part of like riding that wave and waiting for the swell and enjoying the lulls in between.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. It's, I mean, if I am going to brag, I will brag about this one wave I caught. It took me 15 years to catch it, and I caught it like a few months ago in Australia. And that was, it's funny. You just float around, whether it's in water or on land. And if I'm a big believer in positive thinking, and hey, if you think about a good wave for 15 years and then finally you get it, that's, you
So
got
this
it.
is in Australia. What break was this?
I can't tell you the break, otherwise I'd have to, I'd get
Kill
in big.
me?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it was just one of the local spots, and in a weird part of the local spot. And
Can you
just
tell us like why this wave was so
well,
such a trophy?
Yeah, it was like a wave that if Kelly Slater was out there, he would have got it, because he's the magnet. You know what I mean? So, but
Yeah.
I got it. It was just bigger and barreled the whole point, and it was unbelievable. And I was just like, this is crazy. And here I am just riding this thing. It was just felt so amazing to have that thrill, and but those things, it's just like life, like every now and then you get that big thing, but it's the times in between that that you had to deal with or enjoy to get to that one big moment. You know what I mean? So that's why I still wouldn't have given up the 15 years of surfing junky, terrible surf and the odd good one every now and then. I wouldn't have traded that one wave for all those other years of just surfing. You know what I mean? So that's kind of
when was this wave that you caught? It was recent.
Like when I'm back in Australia a few months ago.
So that kind of brings up a topic I wanted to talk to you about. So first, we'll touch upon the fact that we all became parents the exact same time, and we have this funny spacing between our kids that we literally had pregnancies timed together, right?
Yeah, well, we actually all went out to lunch together to say goodbye when we were leaving St. Augustine, and Jenny and I were both secretly pregnant, and we didn't tell each other, right? And then you called to tell us you were pregnant a week after we got home, and we all realized that we were all sitting there with big secrets at the coffee table.
I was suspicious of you guys because I have this weird talent of spotting pregnant ladies, and I was like,
a weird fetish.
Yeah, well, that's another story.
Yeah.
Well, I think you go ahead, and then with our second too. I don't remember what had happened, but we were pregnant at the exact same time.
I think we called you, and you're like, "Oh, by the way,
and you're like too. Us too." Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that was.
Oh, go ahead. Our special news, huh? You guys had to be pregnant too.
Right. We were just always trying to rain on your parade. That was actually what's going on.
Trying to one up each other with children.
Yeah.
So that
we win, by the way.
Exactly. You one up this, and you guys are champions for being able to pull that off. Yikes.
Oh man, it's awesome.
Champions is one word.
Not you guys, just Chelsea.
Yeah. Jay. Well, all right. I did some work.
Yeah.
Well, I actually wanted to, going back to the surfing thing, Can
I ask a super quick question first? So on that topic, that was like a preface to this question. So I've found that since becoming a dad, that I've had some fears within me pop up that I never seemed to have as much before. Now that I have children to think about and worry about, and has that at all come on your radar? You just said you caught this amazing wave. Have becoming a dad at all popped up on your radar? Maybe I shouldn't take these big risks, or maybe I should be more cautious. Has that been on your consciousness?
Well, it's not. I mean, these aren't waves these aren't chopu,
like Jaws or anything.
Not Jaws and stuff. So I'm still fishing in a smaller pond here. So I'm not worried about that. But yes, times 100 with just the whole thing. Everyone says that when you have a kid, your heart's basically outside your body, and it's, oh my gosh, it's I recommend it for the love side, but holy mackerel, it's a radical ride. Just it's something you could burst into tears about at any moment, just thinking about anything bad happening ever. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't think about it as far as me. I think about it as just wanting them to be good. If I can deliver them out into the world, if I can, all right. I last night when I was going to sleep, we were going to bed with Kate's telling me, she's like, "Dad, you're not the boss of me." I said, "Listen, I said, she's this 5-year-old, by the way, and I said, "I'm the boss of you until you turn 18. When you're 18, then you're the boss of you. You can go out and do anything you want, but when you're 18, till then, I'm the boss of you." So I have fun, warping her poor little mind with my silly stuff. But yeah.
Which I have to throw in there. We still call her Rainbow Pants. Does that still stick, or is that
Sunshine Rainbow Pants? I think she's still that at heart, but we don't call her that anymore. But,
okay. So Will and Jenny didn't want to share names, or I don't even know if you knew if it was a girl or a boy. I don't remember, but they just said, "Everyone leave us alone. Her name is Sunshine Rainbow Pants," until she was.
Which I really thought was going to be the name.
I know, we were really excited about that.
Yeah. Well, actually, the story about that is my wife. I was like, she was gonna name her, and that was fine. She got the final call on the name and the girl. So I was like, she was, and I sort of in a fit of stupidity said, "Oh, I don't want her to have some really conservative American blah 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 name." My hippie Australian came out of me just for a moment, and she smacked it back down and said, "Well, why don't we just call whatever it is Sunshine Rainbow Pants?" And I was like, That's a great idea.
Sold.
And she was like, oh, no, I was joking. I'm like, no, that's a great idea. So anyway, so that's how that happened. And
Okay.
yeah,
That's
so.
awesome. Okay, so my question from before, as far as surfing, I feel like the one thing that draws Jay and I to this industry as a whole, or this art form, is just that the people that cross over from music to surfing, they seem to have a bond that is just far more than musicians on a whole. I feel like if you guys get to know each other in the water, it's a totally different relationship. But that's really different in America, in comparison to these people that have all met in Australia. I know that you're friends with Dave, you're friends with Jack. Have you met these guys in the water, or was this all music? Like, where did that all start?
Um, I'm just trying to think specifically. I think all of those hero friends of mine, I've probably met them on land. I know I met Jack on land, and I actually indirectly got him his first gig at the Blues Fest, believe it or not, back when he like 20 years ago or something.
No way.
Yeah. So which I remind him of every few years.
I bet.
Get some royalties on that
Yeah.
And, so anyway, and then and Dave Rastovich, if that's who you're talking about, he's not only my favorite surfer in the world, he's also one of my best friends and closest comedic friends. So yeah, and those guys I probably met them on land, but the bond of just being able to surf together is like, I'm not really like I'm not one of those guys that hangs out and does all the guy stuff. I've always I don't know what normal guys do, but I'm not one of those guys. Just watching football and drinking beer and all that stuff, and nothing against it. I kind of been jealous of those guys because they got this kind of guy bond camaraderie thing. And the bond over their Cheetos, and they're throwing the beers at the wall because their team didn't win or whatever.
What a vision. Yeah.
That's a big jab. Sorry, guys. But anyway, but yeah, so having something like going out and hanging out with your friends surfing, that's awesome. And nowadays it's actually turned into there's more women in the surf than men, which is awesome, which is even better. So not more, but there's getting that way. There's heaps of them out, heaps
more
of
than
girls.
there used to be, for sure. Yeah.
And I love that. And having a daughter and kind of making you realize this guy-centric world is a bit silly, and it's time to get the ladies, just give them the confidence they can do stuff way better than we can. And I tell her that every chance I get, my little daughter. So look out, world, she's coming.
Yeah, I think those relationships made in the water are just, Jay has friends that, we may not talk to that often, but that he surfed with when he was a kid, that's the bond they have, and that's all you need in some ways.
No, totally. You might have this guy out in the surf and you just met him out there and he's this mate that you see for years and years and you know nothing about him except for some funny stuff that you hang out and talk about in the surf, and you don't even recognize him when you see him on land half the time. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I see Dad like that. He just turned 70. And every morning before the sun comes up, he's surfing at a particular spot, no matter what, religiously, with his same funny old friends who are about the same age and younger and even older. And those guys, like, they all have nicknames. I don't know half of their real names. I don't recognize them on land, and it's hilarious. And they have that thing, and that's what they do. Guys and girls, and ladies and gentlemen, more like it. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be able to experience. That human bonding in a watery world, because we're such fish out of waters out there, so we need something to hang on to. Which reminds me, my dad was sitting out there the other day, early morning, and just kabam, he just got smacked and flew off his board, and a dolphin hit him, put
Damn.
a massive dent in his board, and he happened to be sitting next to like a marine biologist, lucky enough,
Oh, it just happened to be.
And my dad was like, is that dolphin going to be okay? I mean, this is like a hard...
Is that dolphin going to be okay? Yes.
Well, seriously, because, you should see the dent in his, on the... Which is a really, it's just the hardest part of the board. And he's like, that wouldn't have even phased that dolphin, you know what I mean? So the thing was smashed in completely. That's pretty rare. Luckily, it wasn't a great white, so...
Yeah, they're powerful. We actually haven't... we see dolphins here, but they don't come and play the way that they... They do in St. Augustine, Jacksonville. Like they were always on the waves with us when we were down there, which the waves might not be as big down there all the time, but the sea life is much more prevalent. That's for sure.
Yeah, talk about like growing up in an environment where like literally you can be like swallowed alive on land or in water at like any given moment. Like I remember one time we were surfing at Broken Heads, you took us to, and on the walk back to the car, everyone was staring underneath our rental car, and they were like, they basically just nonchalantly said, "Oh yeah, there's like a 20,000-foot boa constrictor like underneath your car," and it was just like a normal thing. Like, oh, no big deal. That snake could just eat you.
You told us not to bother him, and he won't bother us. But I feel like there's more advice that needs to be given there.
No, well, I don't know. Did I tell you that? Because yeah, those are called carpet snakes, and those are actually the friendliest snakes that we have.
Those are the friendliest snakes you have. Okay.
Those you can actually pick up and move away, and he's cool and mellow, and he won't swallow you. Unless you leave a baby around, like lying around there, you'll be fine. But
we'll quote you on that one.
Any other snake.
Parenting advice from Will.
Yeah.
Don't leave the local snake, the local carpet snake near your baby. But no, any other snake though, you got to watch out for. That's why a lot of my friends at night when they go outside to take a pee or something, they wear bare feet, because if they feel it, they just gently back their foot off and walk away the other direction. So that's what you do in Australia if you're out there. So I'm sorry, I've rendered you speechless.
Yeah, sorry, it's so gross. Snakes are not my thing. We actually just had a snake out front. Our mailman came to tell us.
Yeah, it was like
the kids were so
3-inch
excited.
garter snake. And
Yeah,
like, ah!
yeah, not a big deal here.
And in all directions, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask actually that connection. So we've talked a lot about your back and forth, but what on earth is that connection between St. Augustine and Byron Bay? Because there are, at least a handful of people that and then more families that do this connection. Like, where did that come from?
Like, I know you said Dave Rastovich is or was dating someone from St. Augustine, and like we've met people outside of our circle that had that connection too, which seems like a weird connection there.
Yeah, there's probably 4 or 5 families, and they go back and forth. And Dave and Lauren are together, and they have a new baby, and and they were just here for a few months actually. And so we had a lot of fun with them. And but yeah, so the back and forth between Byron and St. Augustine, I don't know how to explain it. But the reality of it is it's not that easy. There's a lot of flying, but when you're in each spot, it feels good, and we're in different spots for different reasons. So when I'm here, it's kind of business and trying to get a couple waves when there's surf, and we're living our life with the kids and stuff. And then when we're over there, for me it's like, I get to surf, like I get the energy of the ocean, and that, I know it sounds like really probably selfish, but and it is a really nice life for them over there as well. But for me, it's like an extra thing because I get the energy of the ocean every day, and that it fills up my cup, big time.
Yeah, I don't think it's selfish. I think it's like, I think most people would be jealous of the ability to be able to bring your kids over there and live that life. And plus, it's so rooted in your history that's how cool to be able to let your kids experience that,
Yeah, no, it's amazing with the wildlife over there, especially like my little boy loves the wallabies that come out in the morning and the afternoon, and he follows them around with his diaper and a laundry basket trying to get them. So it's
awesome.
Pretty amazing. And echidnas and goannas and all kinds of and all kinds of birds like galahs and cockatoos screeching at you, and he's running away scared of them, and he's chasing the magpies, and just got to teach him about which snakes to stay away from.
Yeah, I actually just read like a thing on cockatoos that people always want them as pets, but they could actually like bite your finger off if you got too close.
Yeah, I don't know why people want birds as pets. It seems like it's a bit harsh. They should let them fly.
I completely agree. Yeah.
So, Will, we started traveling, with our kids. They're finally at the age where we feel like we can travel, I'm not going to say easy, but fairly easy with our children. And you step it up a level. You take your kids like on a 20-something hour flight, like multiple times a year. For Chelsea and I, that seems like epic. For a lot of parents, they would hear that and like start panicking. Can you tell perhaps other parents out there or
Yeah.
anyone interested, how
Well,
the
first of all,
hell
how
you do
old your
that?
kids are too. Yeah, so they're 5 and 3
3,
right
right?
now, right?
Well, let me just first start by saying the younger they are, the easier it is. So when they're
Yeah.
little babies and they don't move, it's a dream. They can just sleep on you the whole way, and they usually they love the sound of the movement of the plane and all the other vehicles that you go to. I mean, you have to get on to get to where you're going. It's great. They sleep. So as they get a bit older, it's a little bit more challenging. So one of the things that we try to do is limit their time on the screen on land, and so which kind of is me just saying that it's hard to limit that, really, to be honest. But if you can limit something, like maybe it's even just a different thing, like you don't let them look at a phone or an iPad, and maybe you let them watch something else or whatever if you're into screens, But when they're so you give them something special for the plane, like an iPad that they've never, it's the same TV show, but they've never seen it on that, so they're excited. Or a new coloring book or some. I always bring a little bag of fun toys, and they can just sit there and play and do something different. And of course, every plane has a TV these days generally, so you can do that. But so that's one thing, just little tricks to keep them happy, and of course have all this stuff that they like, and you just have to think about it in your mind that it's only a small amount of time. It would take me way longer to drive to New York from St. Augustine than it would. It'd be way harder than it would be to get on a plane to go to Australia. In my opinion, someone can probably argue with me all day long about that, but for me, that's one thing that I just kind of think about. And then the other thing is that we try to break the trip up. So we'll try to stop in different places along the way. And if you can do that, sometimes it's actually less money doing that.
You've been
Especially
doing Hawaii the past couple rounds, right?
Yeah.
I saw that you did that.
Yeah, so especially if you have friends there too, and what a great way. You see your friends a couple times a year, and if they're cool with kids, or if every now and then you give them a break and you stay in like a little hotel that it's a different experience, and the kids will love whatever they can. Who doesn't love Hawaii? I mean, it's the halfway stop to Australia. That place is amazing. It's like when you get off the plane, you feel like you're being hugged by a warm friend that's just perfect. It's and it's amazing. So, and the kids love they don't care. We could go to like the worst place in the world and they think it was great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a Motel 8 they think is like the most exciting experience. Well, so let's be honest, are you planning these trips around swells? Is that the 3-month stints that you do?
Well, I kind of planned it a little bit around the music and the surf season, down there. But no, these days I'm just happy to get what I can get. So I just planned it around whatever we plan. I don't even have a plan. We just
when you can go, you go.
Yeah, we just kind of figure it out. I can't even just there's certain things that we have to do for business stuff and times that we might take a precedence over some other reason, but I think the main problem with the kids and traveling thing is not the kids, it's the parents. So to be honest, like it's more like I heard Jay say, they're at an age to where they can travel. Well, I disagree with Jay on that, and I say, well, maybe he's at a stage where he can.
Yes, that is true.
Where we can handle them
Yes.
traveling.
So, and it's really only in your mind anyway. Like
it's adjusting expectations.
We also have another one than you have, so we're outnumbered.
That is 100% true, and my hat is off to you, my friend. It's amazing that you can pull that off. Like, that's another reason. It's a sad reason, but like, what a weird, selfish thought this is. And to go, look, I don't know if we want more kids because think of all the dang plane tickets we'd have to buy. You know what I mean? What a terrible thought. I think
that's literally my number 2 reason on a 4th child. Don't you worry.
But I feel terrible even thinking that, and I've just told everyone that. But it's like it's a weird feeling, like this beautiful being that you could bring into your life, and once you've had one, you want a million of them because they're amazing. But then you go. Then you think back to the traveling, and who cares if they're having a tantrum in a car or a plane or in the house? It's still a tantrum, And the only funny thing about the plane is like, oh my gosh, here's something for you. It's not the kids, it's not the parents, it's everyone else on the plane is the problem, in my opinion. Not everyone else, but we've come up against some really terrible, crotchety people on our travels, and a few of them anyway that stand out, and those people are just, you got to look at them and go, you're just a sad person. And I'm glad, can't wait for you to, I actually encourage my kids to throw tantrums on planes when I see them. So, but yeah, so but then again, and then the other side of it, you get all these amazing people who are like, oh, that's cool. Like they talk to your kid and they entertain them for a little while, and those are good people,
Yeah, the last trip on our second leg, I guess we were going from Denver to California, and the kids all stood up because, 2 flights in, now they know the deal, and they started going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, and they like cheer, and everyone started clapping
Everyone was
around. It was
stoked.
so cute. But then they sat down. Literally, we're the same way. Like, they don't get iPads. They don't even know we have iPads. And then on the plane, we're like, "Look what we've got!" And they didn't make a peep for 4 hours. I mean, we didn't hear from them.
Yeah, that's the treat. I mean, what's the beauty of those little special treats, whatever it is, whether it's a screen or a coloring book or a whatever, whatever they love, you can get them with. It's so cool.
Yeah, but it is a cool lifestyle to have the kids like out on the road. And so with that, just one more quick question on this topic. What are you guys going to do for school? Are you going to homeschool? Or are you going to do part-time in both places, or what's the schedule?
Yeah, well, actually, we're heading back to Australia early next year, and Kate will be in kindergarten for the first 3 months there. And the school that I went to, wearing the same cute little uniform.
Aw.
It's going to be awesome to be able to work.
Cool.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
So, and then, so that doesn't, people always ask me that. So what do you do with the rest of the time? So it's just going to be a different life of back and forth, and we're just going to play it by ear and hope for the best. And maybe we'll meet nice teachers in the schools that we choose, or the schools that choose us. And we'll just kind of hopefully have a relationship with them to where we can go back and forth, and that we have to do that. So we're just gonna make it happen, whatever it is. We don't have all the answers. We're just gonna roll with the punches. And
yeah, nothing's permanent with school. That's the cool thing, is you can flow with it and change and make decisions that are best at the time.
So, yeah. Will, I have to ask you this. So we were talking earlier the importance of like inspiring one person at a time, and I think we're going to do that. But I really want to ask you, so most people, if you ask them their bucket list items, they'll say things like, oh, I would love to fly to Australia someday. I would love to learn how to surf. I'd love to play an instrument. I'd love to have a family. I'd love to start a business. And like, you're successful and proficient at all of these things. And when thinking about those topics, it seems like, I guess, fear of the unknown and a lack of prioritizing time and, aspects of your life are probably elements of that. And when I say that out loud, I also want to say that like what's cool and like fun to watch with you and Jenny is like you guys complement each other so well. Like you both like trade off. Like one of you is more like neurotic about one thing and the other one's chill, and then you guys switch off, like whether it's business or whether it's another topic. Like it's awesome seeing like Jenny get worked out about something and you're like, oh, Jen, don't worry about it. And then like you'll get all worked up and then she'll just kind of giggle and make that funny smile face she does. Can you like share like maybe some methods or practices you have on how these things have just become part of your normal existence, where most people are like terrified to try any one of these things?
Well, I guess that's a that's a good question. All I can say is that, like I kind of said before, is you just blindly go forward. And I guess when you're passionate about one or I'm passionate about all of the things that I do, and if I wasn't, then I wouldn't be doing them. So if you and as far as finding the time, I guess, it's when you get older, that time goes by and you've had it's one little step at a time. Like I guess maybe some people think about the end result before they think about just the one little step. So if you just think about it like, hey, I'm just going to get to this one. I'm just going to start this thing. I'm going to take that first step of that journey. I'm going to register a name because I've got an idea for a business, and I'm going to take this jewelry that I've been making for years, and I'm going to, for my friends and family, and I'm going to make a whole bunch and go to a market and start selling it, or just a one little step. That's all you need. And don't think about like the 3,000 chain store that you want to do and, oh my gosh, that's so hard, how I could never do that, so they don't ever try. Let's just think about the one little tiny step. These are things that everyone can read in these basic business books, and everyone else has said this a million times before, but sometimes people just need a reminder just to be simple and do one little thing and feel good about that one little thing, and then you can go on to the next thing. And even if that one little thing doesn't work, it doesn't mean it's at the end of the road. It just means you just need to change course slightly and just never give up. That's, little steps and never give up. You'll get where you want to go, but you'll also be enjoying yourself because you're passionate about all of the things that you're doing. And that's the main thing. Like, who wants to be in a dead end job just feeling terrible every day? Like, I would rather be really hungry and not have that job. And that would, then necessity becomes the mother of invention. Then you follow your passion, then you just do it. If you learn how to live with nothing, which I had to which is something we didn't touch on in the story there, is that, I had to learn how to live. I built myself a bed in my warehouse. I don't even know if I told you guys that, or maybe I did.
No.
I basically was renting this 1,500 square foot little tiny warehouse with my hats, and there was a tiny 10 by 10 office, and above it my friend said, "Hey Will, just joking, you could probably sleep up there, man." And I was like, that's a good idea. So next day I had little walls, I had a bed, I had a little microwave, and I slept in that warehouse with my hats for 7 years, which sounds crazy and it was crazy, but I traveled a lot, and I got to save enough money to buy myself a down payment on a little house and a warehouse property. And so you sacrifice those things. And I don't suggest anyone go be a weird guy in a warehouse like I was, but I mean, you probably, it's funny when I can shock you guys. But anyway, so yeah, and I tell you what, the first day when I got to this little junky house that I bought, that I eventually made into something, real pretty, was just, I was this feeling I'll never forget, laying down on this old mattress with bits of ripped up carpet and stuff all around me in this house I just bought, a total fixer-upper. And I woke up and I rubbed my eyes, and I saw, and there was a window and a palm tree and a bird, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, I'm never going back to a dark, black, dungeness jail of a warehouse. I'm always going to live with windows and light. And after living that way for that long, like literally in this, it's a radical thing to wake up and see a window. So I can appreciate these small things and never forget those things, and that's why I that's me. Like, I painted myself that story, I did that on purpose for whatever weird reason I had. It's not like someone like chained me to some warehouse, so I'm not asking for anyone to say, "Oh, poor you," maybe you would say, weird you, but but that's just the path that I created for myself, and for some reason I enjoyed it. It was kind of funny. In the wintertime, I'd wear every bit of clothes I could have, and I realized if I put the covers over my head, and your breath would heat you like a little cocoon, so I could live in, I could sleep in this freezing, because inside a warehouse in the wintertime, even in North Florida, it's like minus a million degrees. It gets colder. It's colder inside than outside, so. And then anyway, I was going to say, and then in the summertime, the only way to survive was a fan and just be naked. You know what I mean? So that's.
I can't even picture you living there, because it's like everywhere we've ever seen you now has been oceanfront and big giant windows, like you said, and always, like, it doesn't almost matter what's inside. You always have that view and that, that fresh air, and that's like how, like, I picture you outside more than in, which is just crazy to picture you in a warehouse.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was only just to sleep and to have to be there, but it's just it depressed me enough to get me off my ass to do something. You know what I mean?
Well, I think so, we've done a few interviews so far, and the one consistency, which is pretty cool to see, and a goal of this podcast is that we've spoken to so many people who are almost on the outside. It's like you could pull them out of the bunch and be like, oh, you're like this surfer hippie that plays music. So where does the other side come in of like, but I actually run this massively successful business? And I think it's so cool to see when I feel like some people are like, oh, but if you're just this surfer hippies, like, I can't just live that way. Like, I have to be an accountant. This is how I make my money. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be stuck in that box, which is pretty awesome. Now, yes, are there the surfer hippies that are going to live in a tent on the beach? Yeah, they're going to find a place to do that. But I think it's pretty cool to see that other side. And I honestly am inspired by that from you, and we always have been.
Look, I mean, I don't want to, honestly, like, if I could have just been a surfer hippie my whole life, I would be 100% happy. And I'm not saying that you weren't saying that, but I'm just telling you that from
Yeah,
my,
no, I get it.
because I mean, like, I mean, there was plenty of times when I had lots of choices when I was a kid to come to America, or I'd saved up a bunch of money from working in my dad's factory. I could have gone and lived in Indonesia and surfed perfect waves for like 100 years and lived for $1 a day in paradise. Um, so there's so many choices, and you just got to follow. What the heck? What was I thinking coming to Florida with no surf to live in a dang warehouse with a bunch of hats? Like, what an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, in retrospect, it's like I could have been surfing all that time and doing something totally different. You just kind of, like always say, you just got to kind of roll with it. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We're just talking, and it's amazing. I mean, I'm so happy just to catch up with you guys because I haven't
We
talked to
are
you.
too.
So it's a
Uninterrupted is always my like. I should have called this like Uninterrupted by Toddlers, the podcast.
Yes.
and what a radical thing it is just to get that few moments of uninterrupted time. Like so yeah, this is a rare treat for me too. Yeah.
I have a question. So we have a few more. I don't want to take up your whole day, although I kind of do. So, all right. So I'm the hippie trippy guy in the show, and you had talked about like painting the picture of your life, and you talked about like visualizing things. And I know just hanging out with you, we've talked about like yoga and law of attraction and things like that. That's a big part of our lives as well. Can you talk maybe about how you have set intentions that have come true? Talk about things maybe that have manifested that you have painted that picture for. Maybe some things that are almost beyond coincidence that you know for a fact that maybe your mindfulness practice or your meditation or your painting of the picture like you talked about, you know for a fact that it's because of that these things came true?
I do, and I hope I can conjure up some specifics, but I do remember things like writing a list of things that I wanted to do. And one of them, I think, before I was like real close with Jack and playing music with him, one of them, I think I remember writing down that I wanted to play music with him. I actually wrote that down, and that just showed up, and I feel like I don't know, writing it down is almost like it's a scary thing to do. Your hands kind of shake when you're writing these things down because you're like, well, what if I can't do that and I'll be disappointed, or all the what ifs and all the things that can cloud your chattering mind in the day, of just all those negative thoughts. And that's why the practice of and meditation and yoga, which I don't do enough of, really does help. Because I remember the times in my life when I spent more time on that, I got better at all of the other things that I wanted to achieve in my weird world, in the weird world that we live in, of what people think success is. So, like the things that I've done, like honestly, I don't think anything's that special about any of it. I know I'm not trying to sound like that Australian play everything down again, but reality
it's in
is
your bones. You can't help it.
Yeah, well, it's not that, even the most special person, Oprah, or, I don't know, whoever, there's done all these amazing things, like Quincy Jones, like insane, that guy's amazing, like even he's not special. We're just people doing stuff, it's not really that great end of the, it's like, it all comes down to just, he might, gosh, you guys had to turn me into a total sappy hippie here, but I mean, there's probably someone out there in the world that is ecstatically happy all day that has done nothing except for just go along and just be a nice normal person, and but they're way happier than all these people with all this success. And I'm sorry to go off track there, but I mean,
No,
I
it's great.
don't know, maybe I just feel like that doing something. That's what's really special about you guys. Like I need to have this call with you like once a week so I can feel good about myself. But I mean, it's really I don't know. I just feel like that people don't need to get caught up in what they think might be special or not, and they might look back on times in the past and realized that just doing this simple thing is actually the most fulfilling and rewarding thing they've ever done. And it's not necessarily, you don't, no one has to go out and be a rock star or be a musician or a business guy or any of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, just being happy. I don't know. I'm so sappy. Gosh, you guys just shoot me now.
No, stop. Man, it's like it's not necessarily the things we do that make us special, but like you are special to us and to your friends and your family. Like everyone would say the same things about you. Like it's we didn't even like know your music until after a while from knowing you. It was the connection of like the authenticity that you bring to every dialogue that we've ever had. Like we met you, we moved to St. Augustine for a winter, and like you took us in to your home, with Jim and your mom, and you made us that delicious curry. And it's your authenticity and your realness and your connection with creativity and traveling. It's those things that make you so inspiring, and it's the mediums that you choose to express it that may or may not make you interesting to other people that don't know you. But I think that who you are is really what is inspiring, and the stuff you do is amazing. I wish I could surf like you and do a lot of the stuff. I wish I could sing like you. I would just talk everything I say through a song if I could do that. But before I blow your ego up even more, so upon that, so what for you? What impact do you want to leave? You have a lot of legacies in so many categories, and there's no ego here. Just literally talk about maybe your legacy as a dad or your legacy as a musician. What impacts would you like to leave behind?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the one thing. Like, I've been working on this album since my little daughter was born, so it's like 5 years now. And just I can go to the studio like once every few weeks, like for a few hours at nighttime, and chip away at that with the guy who helps me. But it's when I always think about that, even back before I got a little bit of success with the music thing, was I was just excited to have this little capsule of creativity or stories or something, little stories that I'd written, and someone could, in 100 years could, if the medium still survives, can listen to that. And so for my kids, I really think about that. I've written some specific songs for them that that if they one day they listen to it and they can think about it, might give them some joy in the future. Long after we've gone, there's these little things that what a thrill to be able to know that you're painting and you're and all the creativity that you guys have done, and that I don't know, anything. It's just amazing to be able to think that you could leave these little chips of goodness around for your kids in the future. And that's one of the things that I haven't done yet, but I kept meaning to do, was every year I wanted to write both of them a letter and seal it up, so when they're older they can open all these letters up about what they did for each year and how they were and how I was feeling and all that kind of stuff, like little time capsules. So I think that's a good idea for even that's an amazing thing to leave. That's probably even more special than writing an album that's cryptic.
It's funny you mention that. I have to like throw this in there because I struggle with that all the time, because I feel like here I am with all these great paintbrushes and a bucket downstairs and paints and canvases, and like the artist within me is like, I want to put in that time to like paint portraits of my children and do all these great things, because I know someday I'm really going to regret not doing that at this age. And then the parent side of me is like, well, that's great, but then you're going to be taking away like 50 or 80 or 100 hours to paint that you could be spending as a parent.
Opportunity cost. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And so just to circle back around, what a cool thing to be able to, maybe if you can't do that, and I won't beat myself up about writing these letters and doing all this stuff for them, how much better is it if you actually sit there and paint with your kids yourself, and you teach them how to paint, and you teach them how to play music. And we have music days, and they just got a set of bongos and they're going nuts and they play along and they sing, and it's like, how much fun is just doing it all with them. So really, we want to leave all these great things lying around one day when we're dead, but the reality is, why not actually just do it with them while we're alive, So
I know it's true. Well, so we are almost at the end, but I ask everyone one question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So, if we made you drop back into one place, and for you, I know there's a lot of them, but what is your first memory that comes to mind when we put you in your childhood kitchen?
Gosh, you know what? I never really had a kitchen. We
Yes, that's awesome.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Okay.
um yeah, we lived literally in like we had like a shed, some tents and some cars we lived in. I know that sounds crazy and that's
That's great. I love that.
but really probably the shed, yeah, the shed. And you know what we ate out of? We split bamboo in half and there were those little compartments in the bamboo and we used chopsticks.
Shut
So
up.
no, I'm serious. It was
Oh
awesome.
my.
We actually bathed in a creek.
Stop.
Yep.
So, what was your favorite meal eating out of bamboo in a shed?
In a cardboard
In a
box.
cardboard box.
Well, I don't know about my favorite meal, but I remember having to eat zucchini and it really annoyed me. And then one day, my dad just every night kept heating up the vegetables for me because I wouldn't eat them. And then that one day when I finally, a few nights later, just I was hungry enough to where I just ate all my steamed veggies and I was so happy. I was like, what the heck have I been missing? And I haven't missed a beat since then. So yeah, that's what I was.
Wow, that is amazing. That's a great answer.
Oh man. So I'll just throw this out there as the last one. Is there anything else that we've talked about that you want to elaborate on, or anything you'd like to touch upon before we go?
Um, well, I could say some funny things that only Jay is there.
Balls.
Yeah, exactly.
He
But
has
no,
that note on our notes like 5 times. How we're gonna work balls into this
I-
conversation.
yeah, that's I not really, except for I just appreciate you guys' time, like and thank you for uh getting people to talk about their experiences, and hopefully people will enjoy um us weirdos talking about things, and yeah, and hopefully if, like I said, if I can just inspire one person to through anything I've done to check it out or to do something similar, or not similar, but just something inspired by especially on the permaculture track that I'm kind of about to endeavor on. Yeah, I'm just excited. I
Well,
guess you have to be, right?
I know you've already achieved that because Chelsea and I are constantly inspired by you and Jenny. Jenny has her own incredible story, which I'm sure we'll talk at some point about that. But
Oh, yeah.
your story, I'm sure, has inspired a lot of people, and it's just incredible to hear. And whenever we get to hang out with you guys, we just it's just drilled into our consciousness how much we love you guys and how much we enjoy our laughs together. And I just wanted to thank you for talking to us so candidly about all these just amazing things.
So,
The
Will,
100
are you gonna post updates on the permaculture stuff on any of your I know you don't love Instagram and all that, but
No,
where?
I'm just hopeless at it. But yeah, no, I am actually. I'm going to endeavor into some time lapse and some little drone footage and all this high tech stuff that I know nothing about. So, but but these things are long term. So this is something that we're getting all the details together. I just did a soil test. Talk about a snooze fest, huh? Let's talk about soil tests. So and then and we're doing all kinds of things to kind of get the thing started. But it takes it takes a few years, and hopefully we can create this amazing space, and I will document the heck out of it, and you'll be my first email every time. So
Can you guys, or can you list some websites or social media that people can find not only you and your music, but perhaps some of these like eco projects you're working on?
yeah, well, I guess connorhats.com, so Connor with an ER and then hats on the end of that, is where you'll find all of the things that I design and we make, and so at the same time, the music, you can just look up my name probably on YouTube, is and yeah, there's some pretty, if you're interested, I don't know, permaculture's just really tripped me out, and it's, oh gosh, it's such a boring topic for most people, but I just am just fascinated when it hit me like a ton of bricks, and realized that within 3 years, if we could change this whole world in 3 years, it would take, and we could just reverse so many of the things that we've done to damage the planet just with permaculture principles. Imagine being able to just walk out your backyard and just feast on the most delicious food, all pesticide free, and without much effort, because it's kind of like it turns itself into a regenerative system. So in other words, it's kind of like it's beyond sustainable. So you get more out of the system that you put in. So anyway, those are just a few little things I've been excited about. There's a guy named Jeff Lawton. You can look him up. He's in Australia, and he's one of the permaculture gurus, and you can check out his farm and all the things that he does around the world. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, I won't go on.
Awesome. No, I love it. I actually heard a friend of mine told me that if every family planted one plant of milkweed, we could save the monarch butterflies. So we'll throw that on there too. Save the world.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So it's fun for kids, How fun is it for kids and go out and to actually get their hands dirty and not be told that's bad. You know what I mean? Just go dirty. Like, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. So thank you so much, Will. This was absolutely amazing. And we will list all your links and all of that in the show notes. But otherwise, thank you.
Yeah,
and we
thank
will
you,
talk
Will.
to you soon.
Thank you. Awesome, you guys. And I look forward to seeing you in real life soon.
Yes.
We hope so. We love you and your family a lot, and we hope to see you and talk to you soon, brother.
Have a good one.
Same here. Thank you. Bye.
Later. Thank you so much for listening, guys. We appreciate you. If you like what we're doing, could we ask you to go to iTunes and leave us a nice review and rating? It really helps us and helps other people to know that we're providing a good podcast for you. If you'd like to find us on social media, you can find us at Shifting Perceptions Podcast. You can find my artwork at jalders.com or me on social media at jalders. You can find my beautiful wife Chelsea on ommamasdoulas.com or on social media at ommamasdoulas. And if you'd like to join our newsletter or find episodes online with show notes, you can go to shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. Until next week, talk to you then. See you guys. Thanks so much.